Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I'll admit, when it comes to the Pelicans Suns game, I didn't watch much of that at all. Not much. And the reason being is because I just assumed automatically that series was a wash because it's the dang Suns. But that is why basketball games need to be played in real life, and it doesn't necessarily matter what's going on the paper, on paper, so to speak. It's more about what you see on the floor and what guys are going to do when they get out there. And we saw Devin Booker kind of go down with an injury, knocked him out of the game with a hammy. So I don't know what his status is going to be for Game 3, but that changes things a bit, to say the least, because this thing is headed back to New Orleans and is split. Brandon Ingram is unbelievable, man. I just the more time goes by, the less I feel great about the Lakers trade. I know I'm supposed to because of the championship and all that, but I look at where Brandon Ingram's headed. I firmly believe we would have won that championship with Brandon Ingram, and I've said that more than once on this camera lately. And seeing as he's playing the way that he is, just 3 years later, I wish he was still on my team. I don't think too many Laker fans disagree with me. Now how things had to play out, that's a whole nother story. A lot of people are gonna have different feelings about that. Most of us are gonna agree that we're happy to have Anthony Davis, but at the end of the day, if you look at what Bi is doing, this is the production we wish we were getting from Anthony Davis. This is the time when we should be getting that production from our players. And there goes our draft pick, going off 37 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists. Should have been 10, but uh, just didn't happen for him at the end of that game. But you understand that Brandon Ingram's absolutely unstoppable at this point. You look at how he was able to string together shot after shot after shot after shot in that fourth quarter. I only watched a couple minutes of the game, but just about everything I saw was him scoring long distance jumpers repeatedly, and um, that tells you all you need to know. Let's put things in perspective, and I'm not talking about as it pertains to the series itself. I just want to kind of take a look at this particular thing here. The Suns are one of the best defensive teams in all of basketball right now. They have two of the most worthy small forward wing combination defenders in the game, in Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. If Brandon Ingram did that to them, that should let you understand what type of talent Bi is. He's only 24 years old right now, and he's already been in the league for what was this, year 5, year 6, something like that. Plenty of upside from here. They started comparing him to Kevin Durant when he first got into the league, and people started forgetting about that and started kind of writing that off because we saw him for 5 years and he was not Kevin Durant. Well, guess what? He's Brandon Ingram. He don't need to be Kevin Durant. He's got his own flavor. And now the production that you thought you would see from him when you drafted him second overall, Lakers, is the production that he's now giving the NBA as we speak. This is a super duper star in the making. And every single year he gets better and better and better and better and better. And you know what that means? That means that he's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. That's what that means, Lakers. That means that you gave away someone who most definitely will have his jersey retired somewhere in this league 15 years from now. So, now that we have all that in perspective, he still ain't winning this series. That's going to be very, very difficult for me to see, even with Devin Booker removed from the series. All that means is more minutes for Cam Payne, and we know how he enjoys big minutes and opportunities to play with Chris Paul, which are rare because he usually comes in for Chris Paul. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they make adjustments to the lineup, and I'm sure they will. Obviously, they can move Cam Johnson around as well. They can move Mikal Bridges around as well. They have so much versatility to their lineup, as we discussed. So, as far as Phoenix shifting back to New Orleans and seeing if their game carries on the road, well, I'm willing to bet it will. I'm willing to bet they just woke up, and I don't think it was. I guess this takes me back to my point about what Bi just did to them. I don't think it was needing to be awake that they had issues with. I think it was the matchups. I think it was the Pelicans, a team that's been playing great for the last couple of weeks, flexing and doing what it is they're capable of doing when they play well. Um, you get in a performance like this from Brandon Ingram. This is what they can do. Like, you start realizing just what type of potential a team has when you consider the defensive talent that they have with some of the players that they have, and then you look at what their stars can do with C.J. McCollum, B.I., and someday Zion Williamson or whatever they trade him for, which is going to be a lot. So at this point, it's like the Pelicans' future is super bright, whether they win this series or not. And the fact that they won this game on the road in Phoenix as an 8th seed just tells you what type of upside they have as a team just in general. This is going to be a winning franchise if they can keep things together with this particular core. So that's something I definitely want to throw out there and say right away. Very impressive win on the road in a situation where I didn't expect them to get a game. So already my bracket is busted as it pertains to this series. I said it was going to be a sweep. But, I left room for them to get a game. I left room for the possibility of being wrong, as I always do. And I'm happy I was, because I am rooting for the Pelicans to go as far as they can get. I like everything about what they've done in terms of that roster. And Willie Green is growing on me as a coach. He's you could clearly see the upside with him is immense as well. So I think they should keep everything together. Enjoy the picks that we're going to give them, because Lord knows we have them coming. And just know that even though we won a championship, not every Laker fan is thrilled about how everything panned out. Because right now, I'd rather have Brandon Ingram. Simple as that. No questions asked. It is what it is. So that's my little bit of frustration as a Laker fan. Now, moving on into another series, we also saw the Minnesota Timberwolves get some get back, or rather the Memphis Grizzlies, get some get back on the Timberwolves tonight at their home court arena. I think it was FedEx Forum, and honestly, I was not surprised, you guys. I wasn't surprised at all. Nothing about that surprised me. I think. Well, I'm hesitant to say that was kind of like a fluke. That game one was a fluke, but what I will say is Memphis came into that game not really understanding what they were in for. And Patrick Beverley had prepared his team for what exactly they were in for. The fact of the matter is, the Memphis Grizzlies, as I said in the previous video, can adjust and make changes that the Minnesota Timberwolves probably aren't going to be able to keep up with, just because of the type of lineup that they can put out there, the type of versatility that they have with their roster. It's just really a situation where you could, if they press the right buttons in terms of Minnesota, they're going to win this series regardless, because they can just do things to Minnesota that Minnesota can't do to them. So that's how I see this series going. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends in 6. I'd say 6. I'm going to give Minnesota another game, probably a game at home. I trust them to ignite their crowd and then feed off of that energy. Anthony Edwards going to play better at home. Guys like Malik Beasley shoot great at home, that kind of thing. So I do expect them to get another game in this series for sure. And Memphis still has a lot to prove in this series. I do not think that they are out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, just the same. Fact of the matter is, they did split, and that should probably not have happened. Minnesota did flex in that first game, and some of that stuff they did in the first game, they're probably going to be able to do at home. You like that you found some things with Xavier Tillman. You like the fact that you continue to see superstar talent out of Ja Morant. His talent is carrying into these playoffs just fine. Desmond Bane played better tonight. So you can see things for Memphis to feel a lot better. Obviously, catching them and blowing them out was a statement they need to make. But that doesn't tell me any more about the series than the first game told me about this series. Fact of the matter is, these two teams do match up well with each other. They're two young teams. And at any moment, players from either side could overachieve and win a game for their team. And that's the danger that both teams face in the series. You mess around and see Anthony Edwards have a 50-point game. Now what? Or Ja Morant goes for 40, 10, and 10. Now what? Like, these are the type of things that you almost expect these type of young players, the type of talent these guys got. So you when you got teams like this, you just expect the unexpected, more or less. So yeah, could this end in 5 right away? Sure. Either way, to be honest with you, it's just it's that type of matchup, and that's why I enjoy it so much. All right, so moving on. Golden State, Denver. It's a lot of frustration in Denver. a lot of this, you know, guys going back and forth with one another. Very unhappy about their play. Very unhappy with one another. I've seen situations like this, and all I can do is tell you what I've seen more of than not. And more times than not, when I've seen teams that are as talented as Denver, but have dropped the first 2 games on the road against a team that they know is better than them, usually that third game they come out and play much better at home. A lot of the energy that they're forcing against one another, if it's not beef, if there's not no real problems behind the scene and they're just all unhappy about being losers, then chances are they're going to funnel that into some positivity and their game will translate better at home. Especially in altitude, I always say it translates somehow. Now, the thing about Golden State is they have fantastically conditioned athletes that should not be affected by the altitude very much. A guy like Jordan Poole, he's gonna fly around in Denver the same way he flies around in San Francisco. It's not gonna matter. That's more so about the bigs, guys like Draymond and Nikola Jokic. That matchup is affected by the change in altitude, that kind of thing. So you're gonna be looking to see the bigs. Kevon Looney, somebody you consider. You wonder how the bigs handle that. Older guys, injuries and stuff like that. So yeah, just keep an eye on that matchup because I do think Nikola Jokic's 3-point shooting woes need to come to an end at home in order for them to get back into this series. He needs to create some space for himself that he's not getting out there. And I think from what I understand, his 3-point shooting has basically been null. It's non-existent. When Nikola Jokic is at his best, that's most definitely in his arsenal. He is a threat to hit at least 3 of those on a very good night. High arc and 3-point shot at his highest range, nobody can block it. Nobody can even contest it. He needs to be able to hit that shot. And I think at home, I would like to see him take that shot. The Jokic I know can hit that shot and always have it in his arsenal. It creates so much space for him and his cutters to dart into the lane and for him to find him and etc. For things to happen around him if he's more so a threat scoring the ball. I want to see 50-point Jokic in this series at some point. 50 points, 20 rebound Jokic is what is going to be required. Now, if he doesn't quite get 50, cool. 40-point Jokic is fine, but I'm telling you, they're going to need scoring out of their big man in this series right away, or they're not going to get too far in this series. I said they'd get to five games, and I still believe that they will. Guys like Will Barton, Gordon, Bones Highland, they're going to get a game. Campazzo was missing from the first game because he did some dirty stuff to my Laker player that got him suspended. He'll be back. I expect him to be a part of what they do. And, if they get swept out of the series, I don't know if Mike Malone's going to have a job. It's been rumors about him and Denver maybe not being on the greatest page to some degree. I don't know to what degree. I don't follow, but it's been rumors of that popping off. And so at this point, I'm wondering if his job would be on the line, and then that takes me to an entirely different conversation for which I will make another video for. But once we start looking at him becoming a coach that could potentially have a job, interview here and there coming, then you start hearing me talk about where they could potentially go. So needless to say, I'm a Laker fan. We'll have a conversation, but I'm wondering about Mike Malone right now. I really am. The situation going on there, it just seems like, this is the first round. I know they ran to the Warriors. Hey, you lost to it on the road to the Warriors. No big deal. But if they lose this third game at home and this team crumbles and they got the MVP rostered, nah. Let's just be real about something. Murray is a amazing offensive talent, but he ain't stopping nobody defensively. Right? That's not his game at all. And you look at Porter. I don't know his game defensively, so I'm not going to assume. but I've never heard of anybody calling him a defensive stopper. If he were, I don't think they would have paid Gordon all this money. So, in other words, Denver, at their absolute best, may still not be good enough to win the West because of their defensive issues as a whole. Jokic plays some defense. We know he can get stops. He's one of the most efficient players to ever play the game already. We don't even question the things he could do. You could build anything around him, etc. No question. He's a perfect player, more or less. I heard a lot of talk about his foot speed. I definitely get it, but because he can pass the ball at the rate that he does, that balances out the speed issue. It really does. The ball moves faster than a body, and he can move the ball around better than anybody. So that it's all about pace, space, ball movement, and a guy like Jokic basically creates that for you. He creates open passes and open shots where there are none. So that makes up for the speed issue. I can't stress that enough. It totally makes up for a speed issue. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. But at the same time, in this particular series, without his shooters, it makes it incredibly difficult. But even so, as a whole, defensively, Denver is not the greatest team to begin with. They have holes in their roster as it pertains to their defense, and that's basically what we're getting at. I don't know if that's a coaching issue. I don't know if you can credit that to Mike Malone or take credit from him in that regard, I should say. My knock on him has always been why wasn't Bol Bol used? I'll never understand that. Maybe there's some truth, not truth, but maybe there's some understanding to be had there, but I haven't heard an explanation. Not a good one anyway. And I know his injury issues, etc., but even when he wasn't hurt, he wasn't being used, and I don't get it. And I think that would help with their defense quite a bit when you consider developing him and what his length does for your defense just off his body being as it is alone. I don't know, but yeah, that's one of those things where I look at Mike Malone, I critique him there from afar, but other than that, I don't know. It just seems to me that Denver, like Utah, it's one of these teams in these playoffs where, yeah, they may have some issues that aren't really being talked about that much because they're not the Lakers or the Nets, but they got some issues. So we'll see what happens if they get knocked off in this first round. And that brings me to Utah, since we're talking about them. Boy, are they the most disappointing team in these playoffs. And you cannot lose that game on the road without Luka Doncic. I'm sorry. You're supposed to sweep Dallas without Luka. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, you got Donovan Mitchell, you got Rudy Gobert. That right there, with a bunch of shooters, should be enough to run a traditional style that beats a severely undermanned Dallas team. I'm sorry, it just should. I look at a guy like Donovan Mitchell, and I've seen him play at his best. I know what he can do. You know what I mean? I know guys like, man, my mind's going blank, but they got players on their team that I've seen play better. Pascal, why haven't they gotten anything out of him? When he was in Golden State, he was a serviceable backup power forward. What's going on there? I haven't seen him in the rotation. Royce O'Neal, why hasn't he gotten better? Okay? And I'm not trying to knock him. This is about the development of the player because I see the upside, and he's not that guy he's supposed to be yet. What's up in Utah with their player development? I like Bogdanovich, but he's a player that doesn't ascend in value. He can't, he has limitations, and he's a great specialty player, but he definitely he should have somebody in front of him. When you consider what Brandon Ingram did tonight, you consider what players are out there at that small forward position. You can't get away with Bogdanovich being the only small forward that can really help you. I just look at Utah and I say they have some development issues. They have some roster issues. And maybe the coaches being scapegoated there, I don't know. But if they get knocked out of this series, like the Denver Nuggets, we're going to be talking about how they're going to be making changes and blowing things up pretty much. Rudy Gobert is probably going to be shipped out. Straight up. And the problem is wherever he lands, they're going to have the same problem Utah's had here. Because he's not the easiest person to build around, and there are going to be situations where you just can't play him. And he makes too much money to sit. So that is a very, very interesting situation that could potentially get bad very fast. Depending on how the league views his his value. So keep an eye on Rudy Gobert. That's gonna get interesting. And I think Dallas could come back and win this series. Unfortunately, even though I did pick Utah to win in 6, I don't have any confidence in Utah. I don't like their. I don't like all that we've said about their team and some of the stuff that we've seen. Giving up 41 points, I believe it was, to Jalen Brunson. That should never happen. I like Jalen Brunson. He shouldn't score no more than 30. He shouldn't. I mean, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? You know? And so it gets to a point where we're like, all right, okay, the Utah Jazz are probably going to lose this series, and then from there, we're going to see those changes we're talking about. Because it's inevitable. They need to make them. And I think if they win this series, they run into the Suns, the inevitable takes place there, and we're still going to see those changes we're talking about, because I don't think they should not make those changes based on the success that getting out of this round. They should still make the changes. So, enough of that. Will KD bounce back? Well, it depends. When you want to shift off to the Nets conversation, it depends, man. I know we got Ben Simmons on the brink of coming back, I think in game 4. So, look, the Nets are already down, and I don't really feel good about the type of physicality that KD's going to be facing in this next game. I think they're going to continue to do the same thing they did to him in game 1. Kyrie Irving's obviously going to go off. His energy is going to be high in terms of intent on beating this team. And I do think the Nets will probably win this game, game 2, because it's just one of those situations where they were so demoralized in their first game, and they're such a proud bunch with such immense talent, till they're going to come out and probably play their best, against the Boston Celtics in game 2. And I'd expect the Boston Celtics, they're going to be ready for it. But with these type of guys, it don't even really matter if you're ready for it. It's about whether or not you can stop it. So what I would say is Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown need to come in defensive. And when I say defensive, yes, I mean defensive on the basketball court. But no, I mean more so like defensive as if they know that's coming. Do you understand what I mean? Like you got to come in expecting KD to give you the best performance you've ever seen in your life. You got to come in with expecting Kyrie to have the best highlight reel he's ever performed. Like, that's the type of mentality that you have to have if you're Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Marcus Smart, the defensive player of the year. Because if you expect them to come in and be dazed and confused by that, by how they just lost that game, or if you expect them to come in and have the jitters, you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will not. I'm not saying that it's impossible that the opponent not be rattled by what you just did to him. I'm just saying you better not expect them to be rattled. That's what I'm saying. The preparation you got to have in your mind is to continue to give them your absolute and utter detailed best. What won that game for the Boston Celtics was absolute detail. They could have very well lost that game if they didn't do one thing absolutely the right way down the stretch of that basketball game. You know what I mean? So to understand that you could be very well down 0-1 heading into this game if you're the Boston Celtics, you understand that this series is not, you're not in control of the series. All you did was take care of one game in your house. Nothing has taken place here as far as the grand scheme of things go in playoffs. Nothing's happened. As far as I'm concerned, the Nets played well enough to win, and the Boston Celtics just so happened to get the victory. You know what I mean? And that type of performance does not match the hype that the Boston Celtics have going into this series. So if I'm in that Nets locker room, I feel pretty good about going into Boston, having seen their best punch, having seen already the hostility of the crowd, having gotten their adjustment court KD and throwing every screen at him, throwing him on the ground, stole a ball from him 5 times in the first quarter. if Boston can play better defense than this, they're going to sweep the Nets. They ain't going to just win the series. They're going to sweep them. So what I'm going to say to you is this. I don't expect that to be the case. I expect the Nets and KD to come out with an intent that is devastating. And it's going to be required for them to both do that in order for the Nets to win this game. And as far as the Boston side of the game, well, adjust to the adjustments made. You know, that would be what I'd say to look forward to if you're the Boston Celtics. Know that the adjustments are coming and be ready to adjust to those. Because even though a lot has been said about Steve Nash not being the greatest coach as it pertains to making adjustments, when it comes to the playoffs, these are competitors. And Steve Nash is not an idiot. I know a lot has been said about people saying he doesn't do this, doesn't do that, but I haven't forgotten who he is as a player. I know what his strengths are as a player. And he just needs to get into the ball movement aspect of things. You know, creating plays for people just like he did in real life. You know, creating opportunities to get KD and Kyrie the ball. And I think what's been working for this team quite a bit is KD facilitating. This team plays very well when KD gets over 10 assists. So if he really wants to do something, especially since they're crowding him the way that they are, turn the point, KD. That's your answer, point KD. And that will open up everything for you, in my opinion, because as long as they keep bumping him and running him around and pushing him and doing all this nonsense, it does play right into their hands as he continues to try to shoot over it. But if he can continue to look for people and do the things that he does in that way, getting those assists for Brown and Drummond, those guys, yeah, the Celtics have to adjust to that. So until Ben Simmons gets back, they're going to be at a disadvantage defensively. We know that. And when he does get back, I think too much pressure is on him to defend, and I don't like that. But it's the playoffs, man. You know, and this is what you sign up for when you're an NBA basketball player. And I will challenge Ben Simmons to get out there. You know, if you can get out there, bro, it's time. It's time. You know, I think the organization, the Nets, and the teammates, I think everybody's on the same page as it pertains to Ben Simmons. But at the same time, I think they all feel the same way I do when I say they really need you, bro. And they need you at your best defensively. So, for whatever that's worth. Well, anyway, yeah, man, I'm having a good time talking about this basketball stuff, man. I really love playoff time, even though my Lakers are not a part of it. You just get the feeling that you can kind of just look at the lay of the land and not really have any skin in the game. You don't really care about any of these teams, so you can just watch players and root for whoever. I'm happy that the Pels won tonight. That's my little adopted team for the playoffs for now. You know, I like them, even though I didn't watch the team very much tonight. You know, it's good to see that Brandon Ingram, my youngin over there, is growing into the player that I always believed he was going to be. Never questioned he was going to be this at all, which is why I didn't want to trade him. So that's one aspect of things. Yeah, man, I guess I'll call it a night, man. I appreciate everybody listening to me ramble about my NBA stuff. My name is BDL44. I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.